Welcome to Life After the Fire, the preeminent podcast for all things related to having an amazing life after the fire service. My name is Chris Phelps. I'm your host, and welcoming back to the show, my good friend Rickey Rod.
It's an honor to be here and to be back. First returning guest.
First returning guest. Yeah, man. So the reason I wanted to bring you back is I got a lot of feedback from the first time you were on. They're like, we really just barely scratched the surface on some of the stuff the amazing things you've been doing. We scratched the surface on your, promotional consulting, and we scratched the surface on the real estate. Most things that people have reached out to me about are the real estate, and, when I was like reflecting back on our conversation, it was like, all right, I remember Rickey from the beginning, right?
That's right.
And to see that he's amassed a real estate portfolio of over 30 homes, we've said.
We're at 35 now.
35 now. So 35 real estate holdings, and done that on a firefighter salary, right?
That's right.
No family money that I don't know about. You didn't hit the lotto?
No, I wish.
They always say, if I win the lotto, I'm not going to tell anybody either, but there'll be signs. I'll be riding up in a car like you were.
Hard work.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. It's great stuff. So I wanted to have you back. So I want to kind of expound on it, because I think of with, maybe some exceptions. I don't know. I think really of all the guests we've had on, like the amazing things that they've put together, yours is the most organic, I think, and something that anybody could really do, right?
Correct.
So, all right. So you got to kind of take us through how it started and, walk through it. Like, this is mostly going to be you talking. I'm just kind of sitting back and taking notes over here, because I'm going to, be like Rickey Rod one of these days.
Well, thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to be back here. Like I always tell people, information is not to be hoarded. It's to be shared. It's borrowed, right? So I try to give it and share it with anyone. So I'm not a person that, like I said, will try to hold information for power. I like to share it. Everyone can prosper. And one of the things is not everyone's going to be able to do what you do, even if they have the exact same information. Because let's face it, everyone has access to the information. Now, to me is, what's your vision? What's your purpose? Why are you doing it? And I always say, before you get the skill set, you have to have the mindset. So to go back to like the genesis of how I started.
Rickey Rod Holdings. I've named it. I agree with your wife on the name. So
yeah, I gotta come up with a cool, catchy name someday when I'm not busy with family. But I remember originally in 2000, I want to say 8, before the crash, I had my first real estate property. And, just to fast forward, make a long story short, is that I lost it during the recession, and it really hit my identity, really hurt. And I was wondering, what did I do wrong? Here I am. I'm being promoted at work, making a good salary. My family's all healthy, but yet I lost my first real estate property. Well, the reality was I didn't know what I was doing. Had no clue what I was doing, no training, didn't bother to do any numbers or anything. So I vowed at that point that this never happened to me again. So, I sat in my poopy diaper for a while, right? Trying to figure out why, sulking. And through that time, I just found out at the end of it, I didn't have a strong foundation. And we all know that without a strong foundation, you really can't build anything on it. It's a house of cards. So I figured, how could I build a foundation to where later on I can build whatever I want on there, right? And so I started the route of becoming debt-free. Okay. And that was the first thing that I thought of because it felt the easiest. Well, I didn't have to make any extra money. I just had to cut back. And so that's what we did. But during that time, we figured that, well, man, if I make more money, I can cut these things faster and get rid of these debts even faster.
Right.
And freed up a bunch of income, which I started saving. So I went through the whole Dave Ramsey program, went through
Live like no one else.
That's right.
So
I did
that
it.
one day you can live like no one else.
That's right. Max out here, put money in 401k, you know, the whole nine. So we did it.
The baby steps.
We did the baby steps. And it got to a point and I was looking around going, what else? What else could I do? How else could I accelerate this? And at that point, that's when I started.
Get back on the horse. Whereas a lot of people had similar situations in 2008, lost houses, and they just totally turned them off to real estate.
Agreed. There were so many people when I was getting started that, told me not to do it and gave me all of the stories and the fear mongering and all of that. And I just, at that point I had started really educating myself. And so this time I was determined to be successful. And with that money I had saved and with my testing and coaching business, I had a lump sum of money. And so I was going to buy my first property. So my first property ended up being a family member's. My wife's mother was living out of the country and she had a house that we were helping her manage. And she was starting to put in a lot of money into the house. And so I go, you know what? Why don't I just buy that house in cash? Right. And then I started thinking, what if I put together something creative, hold on to my cash because the house needed some fixing, take some of that cash and rehab the house and it'd be worth even more.
Yeah.
But by then I had already started to look into private investors, how to get other people to share in and make a little bit of return on their money, sitting in the bank, not making anything. So this was a deal that I put together that had 3 parties involved. Myself, my private investor, which happened to be my mother, and then my mother-in-law who owned the property. And so with this property, I ended up getting the down payment, $20,000 from my private investor.
Okay.
Paid her a fixed rate. I believe it was 7% at that time.
Okay.
And then I negotiated a seller finance on the property. Right?
All right.
Because she had owned it. So there was no banks involved. So I took the $20,000 from my private investor, gave it to my mother-in-law, the property owner.
Yep.
And then that money and we put it on terms and, she wanted to help us out. So she charged us really low interest.
Okay.
At that time, it was, I want to say 3.5%. And that lump sum money that I had, that I told you about originally, I took that and rehabbed the property.
Okay.
So just to give you some numbers to help, contextualize.
All right, so the purchase price of that property was
$75,000.
$75,000. You had $20,000 seed money, and then seller financing for the 55.
Yes, as a matter of fact, it was $70,000.
Okay,
so 70, 20,
50. And then you got a low interest rate on the 50.
Yes,
and then you did a self-funded rehab.
Correct.
All right, and the property went from being, well, was it worth 70 or was it worth more than that when you bought it?
It was worth a little bit more than that.
Okay.
She gave us a discount, being that
sure, of course. She was family. All right. After your rehab, do you have an idea what it was worth after your rehab?
So I think at the time, when we rehabbed it, I want to say it was worth about 128, 130.
Okay.
Somewhere around there.
How much did you put into it to get it there?
I put about 20,000 into it, about 20, a little over 20,000.
All right. So you put 20 into it. So your total in, with finance, whatever, it's like 90, and it's now worth about $120, $130, whatever, something like that. Okay.
Correct.
And then what'd you do with that property?
So at that point, there's a term called seasoning, right? You can't just go and, after you take ownership, you can't just refinance it. So I waited for the seasoning period, which is usually 6 months. So by the time,
actually, it's just recently gone up.
It did.
It's a year now. Yeah.
But this one, I want to say I refinanced about 7 months in, somewhere around there. And it was just crazy. I was able to pull out, I want to say $26,000.
Okay.
So at that point, what we call infinite deal, I had zero money into it. So when I pulled that, first of all, when I refinanced it, I paid both my debtors. So I paid my private investor the full $20,000.
Okay.
And then I paid the $50,000 or whatever the balances were.
Yep.
And pulled out, I want to say $26,000. So I got all of my money plus addition, a little bit more.
Yeah.
And so I was able to take that and do it again, applied it in another property.
So I think there's an acronym for this method, right? I've heard of this before.
It's called the BRRRR method.
Okay. And what does that mean?
So the BRRRR is you buy, you rehab, you refinance. Excuse me, I missed one. You buy, refinance, rent. Excuse me. Why am I forgetting this?
Buy, rehab, rent, and refinance.
And then refinance.
Yeah.
And then the last one is repeat it all over again.
Yeah.
So
there you go.
So the BRRRR method, right? Yeah. I did that several times, throughout my journey, and just kept repurposing the same pot of money, so to speak. Now, not every BRRRR you get out your full amount.
Sure.
Sometimes you may only get out 80%, but whatever the case, I still left me money to work with.
Yeah.
And then eventually, we pivoted and we started doing more private investors where we paid them a fixed debt. So we've used several strategies. We've never really were stuck with the same type of strategy. It just depended. It depended on the property.
But the BRRRR method was a good way to start.
Absolutely.
It's a good way to start and finding an opportunity where you're able to have that seller financing, where you were able to get that seed money.
Correct.
Really helped propel you or start you out.
For sure.
So 35 properties roughly, I think
35.
we said. How many do you think you did on the BRRRR method?
I would probably say maybe 20 of those.
20. And how much time did it take you to acquire that 20 properties?
So it probably took me, I was during that time, I was really buying. Yes, I was buying about 8 properties a year. Okay. That was my goal. Buy 8 a year. So probably in the first 3 years, I amassed that amount, and then I've slowly slowed down. And obviously, the market has changed. BRRRR deals aren't as easy as as before, because we have a lot more competition out there. Yeah. So it's a little bit different. So you have to pivot.
Some secret got out.
Oh yeah. It got out for sure.
And now with rates coming up, it's definitely impacting the numbers. And when you're evaluating these properties, there's something called a cap rate, right? So explain what a cap rate is and why that's important in a.
Yeah, so you got the cap rate, right? Capitalization rate, and it usually does apply to more of a commercial or multifamily, not so much in the single family or less than 4. Sure. But it's just a matrix to kind of know, a roundabout of what the market is. So if you had, say, for instance, the lower the cap, the less risk, but the less return typically. Yeah. The higher the cap rate, the more cash flow, the higher the return, which you typically have to deal with problems and it's riskier. Yeah. So it just depends on your thirst for, your
risk reward,
and how you want to manage that. For me, usually when you're getting started, you tend to go for a little bit higher return. Sure. And you'll take on more risk. But as you get more older and savvier, you tend to go, I don't really want to deal with those issues anymore. But yeah, so the cap rate is essentially that. It's just a way to measure a particular market, and cap rates are different. And it's, everyone has their opinion on how you can, manipulate the cap rate, so to speak. But basically it's, you take if you take the total income from a property, annualize that, and you divide it over the market price, not your purchase price. And so people confuse that a lot of times, and then it'll spit out a percentage, and then you can compare that. So it's a way to compare different investments. So if you wanted to compare a 8% cap rate for a real estate property versus a business, it's a way to compare dissimilar type of
apples and
investments.
beta to normalize or compare
Exactly.
apples to oranges.
Exactly. And it's not 100%. It just kind of gets you in the area.
Ballpark.
Exactly.
Awesome. All right. So then you kind of moved on from the BRRRR method. Not that you have you still done any that way, or you're now moved more into?
I may do this next one, the one that I just purchased last week. I may do a BRRRR on that one.
Yeah.
Maybe.
But the next strategy that you implemented was what you said, private
lending.
Mm-hmm. And what does that look like?
So private lending is basically someone who wants to get a return on their money that they're not getting from the banks. Okay. And so they could, go with there's several companies you can put your money with, but essentially it's a relationship, right? Mm-hmm. And when you become a person known as, someone in this type of industry, people tend to come to you and say, hey, I got this money sitting here. It's not making me anything. Right. Would you be able to invest it for me? Yes, I can. Then every deal is different. I don't go hunting for people's money. Sure. It has to be organic, and it has to benefit both of us, because I value the relationship way more than I value the return on the investment.
Sure.
And so, we've done that. Several retired firefighters, friends, family, nurses that I've done that with, and it's all relationships. Mm-hmm. So you decide, you come together and you decide what return. The best way is to figure out what are they getting already, and usually that's a good place to start. So if they're only getting, say, 3% on a CD, but in most cases, if your money is in the bank, you're not even getting 1%.
Yeah.
And then a lot of times it's just people just don't understand. They don't understand how this works. So really the friendship component is what they tend to value. So they're not investing in the name of my company. They're investing in Rickey Rodriquez, Rickey Rod, or Chris Phelps, right? They trust you.
Yeah.
And once you build that level of trust, you go, okay, well, how can this work for both of us? I help you build your wealth. You help me build my company. It benefits both of us. That's kind of the nuts and bolts of how it works. And there's more details to it.
All right, let's get into some of those.
Okay.
Let's give an example transaction. Doesn't have to necessarily be one that you did.
Okay.
But give like an example of
perfect.
What it would look like.
All right. So I had
Do we have to give like a disclaimer, like past practice or past performance is not indicative of
that's right.
Future results.
So I'll tell you, I had a deal, good friend of mine. He works in the fire department. And he was one of my first big investors, and we had a great working relationship, and we had slowly built up, but I remember these numbers cold. So I'll just talk about this one. So after I had proven, what I was doing actually works, and I actually do perform, he invested $100,000 with me, and he was one of my preferred lenders, so he got some additional benefits. Mm-hmm. He ended up getting, I want to say, a 9% return, so that's $9,000 in a year. Mm-hmm. But what I like to do is I like to create an income for people. So instead of waiting for the year, I like to pay people every month. So he got a check every month for $750.
Okay.
At the end of the term, which was 1 year, he received his entire $100,000 back. Plus he had been getting that check. Right. So you go, well, what could I do with that? And I said, well, I mean, you can do a lot with a $750 check a month. Yeah. One of them is pay for a car payment, pay for a boat payment, whatever you want. It doesn't have to be a year. Everything is defined. So essentially that's was his return. He got a 9% return annualized. And I paid him every month, $750. And then I paid him back his entire principal, his entire investment amount. And so it worked out great for both of us.
So he basically, that's basically, I guess you could consider that like a hard money loan?
Not really. So hard money is a little different.
Okay.
The private investor, you have to have a relationship with someone
Mm-hmm.
because primarily they're investing in you. They're
Right.
not investing in a number. So this particular gentleman is very savvy, but I'm kind of speaking for him, but I don't think he was so interested in how the numbers worked out, more so that he believed in me and he believed that I was going to do what I said.
Yeah.
Hard money is different. You're dealing with a third party. They don't know you. They're strictly looking at the numbers. They could care less about you as an individual. Mm-hmm. They're looking at, does this numbers work and how can I protect myself? And that's it. That's pretty much it.
Right.
More of a relational thing on the private lending, which I like because I'm a relational type of person.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. So 9% interest only. Financing. Correct. Basically, you're making, or he's making $750 a month, and then at the end of that term, he gets his full amount of money back.
Correct.
So, and you took that $100,000 and did what with it?
So with that one, what did I purchase with that one? I can't remember what I purchased with that one.
All right, for this to work, you're going to have
I know.
answers. When I have questions, you're going to have answers.
I know, right? So let's see. What did I purchase with that one? Oh, okay. So I remember. So I purchased a duplex with that one.
Okay.
Yeah. Now I remember. And at the time when duplexes, you can get under 100,000. I want to say I purchased that duplex for 90,000.
Okay.
And when I purchased it, I rehabbed it, did a light rehab,
mm-hmm.
and in a year's time, it was worth, I don't know, 150, 160.
Okay.
So that's how I was able to, refinance out, pay him his entire investment back, and retain mm-hmm. the property free and clear.
Okay.
And that one, I don't believe I may have put a couple of grand in my pocket, but that one, again, that was one of those ones that you're not always going to get a big return back. You're not going to get infinite deals on every one, especially now.
Yeah.
But it was still a great process. So essentially I was able to, use those funds to purchase a property that property is worth, I don't know, 250, 260 now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So,
yeah.
So he basically lent you $100,000, mm-hmm. even though the value of the property you were buying was less than that amount.
Correct.
So you built in some renovation
mm-hmm.
budget into that amount.
Correct.
And then that in a year's time, you're able to pay him back his $100,000, and you're now sitting on a property that's worth
250.
I was with 250
mm-hmm.
at the time.
No. Well, it's
at the end of the year. At the end of the year,
correct.
When you had to pay him out 100, you have a property that's now worth 150.
Correct.
So you're able to, at that point, you're able to refinance it, pay him out his $100,000, and walk away with some extra money for the next property.
Correct.
Okay, so it still sounds very, very Burrish.
It is. It was. It just.
Okay.
It's degrees of Burr, right?
Okay. All
right. Sometimes you get an infinite deal. That's
gotcha. Sometimes it's a small down payment and relative to the value of the home.
Correct.
And other times it's enough to cover the full nut on the home.
Correct.
All
Correct.
Right. So now you're doing more like that.
So right now, today, they're a lot harder to find. So this is really the relationship building now. So all of the groundwork that you've put into place now is what you're going to need to in this market to really find property. So I'll give you an example on this most recent one.
Okay.
Who are you becoming, right? You have to be the person you want to become. Mm-hmm. So people know me as the real estate person, right? I'm the guy that's going to help you. I'm the positive guy, whatever that is. You attract people, right? Mm-hmm. So in this instance, someone who had previously helped sought me out as a solution to his problem. And so I pointed him in the direction of the help. And during that time, we just posed a question. And actually, it was my wife. Wouldn't even think about it. My wife said, is he selling or is he renting it again? And I just assumed he was renting it again. And so I go, you know what? That's a great question, honey. Let me find out. And he was selling it. And so there's an opportunity that I didn't have to compete with anyone. It never went on an MLS. It was a great deal for the both of us. It was clean, smooth. And so we were able to buy a property at a good price in a very good neighborhood. And we both won. Again, that's what we're looking for, those win-win scenarios. So that's, kind of what we're doing now. We are still sending out postcards. We recently got a hit back from someone on a postcard that I sent a year ago on some land that we already own, 4 or 5 lots in this particular area. And these 3 will pretty much give us an entire city block right there.
Oh, wow.
And I got a hit back. And we're working out the details now, so I'll be purchasing that. So it's all those seeds that you laid out before, and you've taken the time to water, and it's just been organic, and now they're starting to bear fruit.
So now, when you've identified a property that you want to acquire, do you already have private money sitting there waiting to go? Are you putting together like a group of investors to help you to buy a property? What?
So I think that's the next evolution in my business. I really do want to do that.
What's that? A REIT?
So it could, it'll be more of a syndication.
Okay.
So that's what I tend to want to do eventually. I just, the level of motivation, sometimes I like spending time with my family, and, the saying about the enemy of great is good, and we're in a very good place. So sometimes, my motivation isn't there, but that's going to be the next evolution, in my business, is going to be creating funds where, first responders can, contribute to and invest in and get a fixed return back. A hell of a lot better than what you get in a traditional bank.
Sure.
And so that's the goal. And it's going to be with a company and people that they trust, know, they can pick up the phone and call me. You can't pick up the phone and call Bank of America to talk to the, to the president or CEO or someone up there, but you can pick up the phone and call me. So I always want to be approachable and available. It's an opportunity for people to get a great return. And make money.
And have you ever, have you partnered with anybody on any of these properties?
Good question. So there's a lot of people that partner. I've never partnered. I own 100% of my portfolio. Well, let me back that out. We are creating
other than family.
Okay. So, we are creating the Rod's Family Group, LLC. We've already created that, and we have one Airbnb in there. So we're going to create that. So right now on that one, I've partnered with my oldest son in that one. Other than that, everything else we own 100%. And it's just, different strategies for people. For me, it complicates things sometimes.
Yeah.
And I'm at this point in my life where I don't want the complications. But it is a strategy, and I know a lot of people that use it. But for us, we own 100%. We retain full control. We can make moves, pivot. So we've never partnered in a sense like that. We've temporarily partnered with people, with private lenders, and we're, that's what we tend to focus on.
Yeah. Very interesting. Well, I think we've done a good job of diving a little bit deeper into it. Obviously, there's still more, and there's still plenty for folks to learn. So I know we talked about it before. Your group, your meetup group. When does that usually meet?
So we meet first Thursdays of every month.
First Thursday of every month in Port Saint Lucie.
Port Saint Lucie at the Hop Life Brewery.
That's where you're currently meeting. You haven't outgrown that yet?
Not yet.
I'm surprised with all the press. All of our 10 listeners are probably showing up there.
Yeah. No, we get a good group of guys. This month, we have our holding title company who we use for all of our closings. They're going to be there. We're hoping that the lawyer is going to come too. So it should be a good meetup group. Anyone that has questions about real estate, title, this will be the one to come to. And we hope to continue bringing guests, speakers. But it's been great. I really enjoy meeting everyone and seeing people, how, people just starting out and how eager they were. And I remember I was that person. So again, just another way for us to give back and help.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And anybody that wants to start picking up some of these nuggets from you, what's their best way to follow you?
Yeah, thank you. So I'd say the best way to follow me will be on Instagram at Rickey Rod, at Rickey Rod. So Rickey with an E, RICKEYROD. So at Rickey Rod on Instagram is the best way to follow us.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Man, I really appreciate you coming back.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, for our 10 listeners, if you like what you're hearing and you know somebody else as successful or doing some amazing things like Rickey Rod over here, hit us on an email at info@latfpodcast.com. That's info@latfpodcast.com. See you on the next one.